Hey guys, are you trying to get into medical school so you become a doctor? I'm going to share a little bit about my story and my background so you guys can see where I've been on this journey. I was one of those people that came to college knowing that I wanted to be a physician, and I actually only applied to one college coming out of high school. I actually went to Northwestern University, did an early decision program for that. So I got my announcement or my acceptance in December of the year applying to colleges for all of that. And I remember when I got on campus, I did a summer pre-matriculation program, undergraduate success in the sciences program, where we did project research on lead poisoning in Chicago because of the historic houses that they have out there. There's a lot of lead-based paint that was used, and so we wanted to do some research on how the community residents can avoid some of those lead-based hazards. But during that time, I actually came across the president of the Pre-Med Society over that summer. And you guys might find this a little cocky, arrogant, but what do you know? This is just me in a nutshell. I told her that I'm going to take her job one day. So yeah, that's a little bold of somebody who's not even starting college or whatever. And lo and behold, with time, I would spend first year just a general member of the pre-med society. Sophomore year I was a treasurer of the pre-med society, and then junior and senior year I was the president of the pre-med society. So I'm a man that if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to make it happen. And being involved in the pre-med society for such a period of time, I learned the ins and outs of getting into medical school, not only because of having connections with Northwestern University and our Feinberg School of Medicine, but also one of the things that I was responsible for doing as a president of pre-med society, we would have our annual medical school day, which would occur in the spring quarter each year. And it would, I'd say the best way to think about it would be it's a college fair for medical schools. We invite the top medical schools from throughout the country to be at our annual medical school day. They would present students from Northwestern and all the local colleges in the Chicago area could come as well, and they could just learn what it takes to get into medical school. And because I was in charge of coordinating that event, I obviously got I was on basically a first name basis with all these adcoms from all these top medical schools throughout the country, because I was working with them throughout the years and president doing it for 2 years or so. You really start to see what they're looking for, and I can ask them questions about things, and they were more than happy to help me with personal questions I might had for this process of applying to medical school. And then I remember senior year going through the application process to medical school. My classmates and friends, they would ask me questions about what does it take to get into medical school, because they wanted that insider knowledge that I had, and I would gladly share it with them because that's just the type of person that I am. But then it also got to a point like, okay, this is a little bit overwhelming, but more importantly, I felt it was not efficient use of my time because I felt I was saying the same things over and over again. And so I'm like, okay, this is early 2000s, just early 2000s or late 2000s or so. So I said, you know what? Why not build a website where I can share everything I know about getting into medical school? That way, that information can be accessible 24/7, 365 days a year, excuse me. And so that's what I did. I just started putting together a website that had everything that's possible for somebody to know about the process of getting into medical school. And what I tell people, it's basically I've done it myself, and over the years, I've been doing this for over 15 years. I have helped countless other pre-med students get into medical school. So if you like what I'm doing, you like my personality, the way I work, and I encourage you to reach out to me, and we can talk to see what I can do to help you on your journey to medical school. But I'm just not one of those fly by night people that's going to be here today and gone tomorrow, because unfortunately I've been doing this long enough where a lot of times you just have somebody who's a medical student and they got into medical school, and so they think they're qualified to give you guys advice on what it actually takes to get in. That's not necessarily the case, because they're usually working from their own personal experience. They don't have that Rolodex, that contact list of AdComs, not only from their medical school, but other medical schools throughout the country, so that you can get a consensus and universal opinion of what you should and shouldn't be doing to get into medical school and be that must admit pre-med student. That's my proven process called MAPS, must admit pre-med student, because I want to get you into medical school. And it's a process I've developed over the years after working with countless students who have gone on to all types of medical schools. I got them into MD schools all across the country. Some have decided that they wanted to do DO schools as well. I think I might even have a few that they decided, based on probably some of their academic issues with perhaps the MCAT or GPA, that it'd be better for them to go to one of the international medical schools. So I'm familiar with everything. My expertise is really just seeing where you're at, taking you from a diamond in the rough pre-med and making you the must-admit pre-med student that stands out. You have a compelling personal statement, compelling application that really makes a case of why medicine and why you, out of everybody who's applying to medical school, why should you be admitted? And that's what I want to do for you, is help you come up with a compelling story and narrative that you carry throughout your entire application for medical school. And one thing I want to say about that is that oftentimes when students get to me, it's a little bit on the late end, because they're actually thinking about this is a year that they're applying to medical school, when it would have been a lot better if you would have reached out early in the process. I say that because usually when you reach me, two things are pretty much set in stone. Your GPA, that's really not going to change too much at a certain point because of all the courses you've taken and what you need to do for that. That GPA is pretty much set in stone. And also the other thing that's pretty much set in stone would be your MCAT score. Some people would say, no, that's not really the case. That's not truthful. I haven't sat for the MCAT, haven't taken it yet. But inherently, innately, or whatever, most people have a certain range that they're going to perform on the MCAT regardless of things. There obviously are some circumstances where people can improve their MCAT performance, and also times we see students go the other way where their MCAT performance isn't what you would expect from them. But the MCAT's entirely different beast. It's unlike any other test you've taken. So how you do in a classroom does not to determine how you're going to perform on the MCAT. But I just want to say, basically, MCAT and GPA, those numbers are pretty much set in stone. But you got to think there's a lot to get into medical school. You have to think that the numbers are just a cut off. You basically need to meet the minimum threshold for an AdCom to take a look at the rest of your application. And that's where I come in, because you got to think, once you have these numbers, you're basically on equal footing with everybody else applying to medical school. Now it's about, how are you going to stand out? How are you going to make that case for, okay, this medical school has over 10,000 people applying, but they can only admit 150 students into their incoming class. So you guys can run the numbers. You can do the math on that. That's a lot of people that are not going to get into that medical school. So you need a way to develop your it factor, your pick me factor, something that's readily available to AdComs, where they take a look at your application and know, yes, this is somebody that we want to hear more about. We want to give them a medical school interview invite, and we want to really know, what are they bringing to the table? What are they going to bring to the field of medicine? If you guys struggle with that, you don't know how to tell your story, you don't know, even though sometimes you guys don't even have your pitch of why pre-med, why you want to be a doctor. That's something that you guys need to really work on and have that hammered out, because you never know who you're going to meet and when you're going to meet. Even I'll tell you a story. There was a time when I was traveling, I was on the airplane, and I was sitting next to a rheumatologist from Johns Hopkins University. And so you got to think, talking to them, what if, and we have a conversation, they find out, oh, you're pre-med, you're applying to medical school. Why do you want to be a doctor? Da, da, da. And what if I didn't have an answer for that? I was just fumbling, oh, because I want to help people. There was somebody in my family that was sick, and so I want to be able to do something for other people that were in similar circumstances as me. Do you think they're going to go back to the Johns Hopkins Medical School of Medicine committee and say, oh, I met this pre-med student, Jason, on this flight, and he has a lot of potential? Absolutely not. They'll just be like, okay, it was nice talking to you. And they might even be gracious enough to exchange contact information. That just depends on the situation, but they're really not going to advocate for you if you don't have your compelling reasons for wanting to go to medical school, why you want to be a doctor, and being able to really stand out and make the case for that. So that's why I strongly advocate for that. But you just got to also realize that getting into medical school is extremely competitive, where over 60%, yep, over 60% of first-time applicants to medical school actually are rejected. Ouch. So all that time that you guys spent working could mean that you don't get in, and now you got to think of what's plan B. What are you going to do to salvage your future? And you're going to have those awkward conversations with family over the holidays or school breaks when people are asking, are you a doctor yet? Are you in medical school yet? And you really don't have an answer for that. You kind of have to exit the conversation, or just say, be like non-committal, like, oh, I'm just working on it, there's some things I want to do, or oh, actually I'm applying to grad school to improve my chances, or whatever. You really don't want to be in that situation. I want to help you avoid that. So that's why I encourage you to reach out to me if you're a pre-med student and you know you're serious about getting into medical school and you want help in this process. You don't want to just try to figure it out on your own and just think, oh, well, I can ask somebody online, they're anonymous. And you don't want to do that because you don't know the value of what you're getting from somebody online. I saw somewhere recently somebody put a post out there giving advice, and it was completely wrong and correct. I actually contacted the school to actually verify this advice. School was like, absolutely no, that is not the case here with our medical school program at all. So that's just something that you guys need to be aware of. So you need to work with somebody like myself, Dr. Jason Spears, here at drpremed.com, where I use my name, I have my face, I'm not hiding behind some avatar or some profile online. You can see me because you want to have trust in me, and I want you to have trust in this process that we would undergo together to help you realize your dream of getting into medical school, and more importantly, streamlining the path to you becoming that physician that you're meant to be. Or in some cases, you guys are doing things because mom and dad are telling you they want you to be a doctor, and we can discuss that because I know there's a lot of pre-meds that deal with that, where parents want them to be physicians because of security, prestige, and it kind of goes back to the parents. They can brag a little bit in their social circle that, oh, I'm a good parent. Look what I did with Johnny and Susie. They became physicians, and so they're getting handshakes and claps and all of that, and being awarded like the best parent because of that. But we all know there's a little bit more to that than that. So you guys really need to apply to medical school because you know you want it for yourself and you want a competitive advantage. That's one thing I can offer to you, because I will help you avoid any pitfalls, roadblocks, and anything that could derail your chances of getting into medical school, because I've seen it. And plus, I've been on the other side of the table. You guys apply to medical school from your personal perspective that you need to get in, you need to be a doctor. That's great, that's fine and dandy. However, I look at things from the other side. What does a medical school need? What are AdComs looking for? And again, with that whole numbers of 10,000 other applicants, how are AdComs looking at everybody to whittle the class size down to 150 admitted students into their medical school class? That's what I'm going to bring to the table for you, and just insight. And then I think one of my biggest superpowers is the writing component of getting into medical school, because again, I said pretty much you guys are locked in on your numbers, your MCAT and GPA. However, there's a whole lot of writing that you're going to do after those numbers are in place, and that's really going to help you stand out if you do it correctly, if you approach it in a manner that it deserves. And you have to think that AdComs are thinking, okay, this applicant has 100% control over what they're going to submit to us, because we know you don't have complete control over the MCAT, or you don't know what actually is going to be tested on that. And even in college with your grades and GPA, you don't know what the professor's going to test you guys on, or the grading process for that. But personal statement, most meaningful activities, extracurriculars, your control of that 100%, and that's where you can stand out. And so if you want help coming up with your narrative, your compelling story, making the case, selling yourself to AdComs without being cocky or arrogant, then you definitely want to reach out to me. You can find me, it's drpremed.com, and I look forward to helping you get to the next step and helping you land where you ultimately are meant to be, and that's a medical school on your way to becoming a physician.